Hello, it's us again, Adrian and Bridget Plass.
Hi, hello there.
It
Hello.
does feel as though we've said us again a few times. I think this is number 16.
16th one we've done, yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
And of course, we, like you, it didn't really come too much as a surprise, did it, to hear that we're going to be in this situation of being locked down or semi-locked down for the foreseeable future. And we do know that for some people that's a massive problem, and that for other people they're working out ways of being able to cope with it.
I was quite amused this morning, Bridget, that a friend of ours called and he reminded me of an episode of Fletcher, or rather Porridge,
yeah.
where Fletcher and Godber are obviously bored out of their minds by being in their cells all the time. And Fletcher says, well, what about if tonight we go out for a meal, meet a couple of girls, come back in a taxi later? That would be nice, wouldn't it? And then he says, I don't know though, we did that last night. I think we'll just have a quiet night in. But I think for most of us the quiet night in is pretty well the only option. It might be possible to create a little bit of noise, but yeah, a lot of time on our hands.
A lot of time on our hands, and clearly there are people with a lot of time in their hands having a go at these anagrams.
Well, I've got an incredible list here from somebody who has really worked hard. I do applaud it. These are anagrams of Claude Monet, of course, the evil painter. He's not evil really.
No.
Who our jigsaw is based on one of his paintings, and is still far, far from finished. Anyway, this is her list. It's amazing. Right, Cloud ate men, men eat cloud, lame cod tune, which he pointed out could be for those mad eels we've mentioned previously. And for the jigsaw, doing of the jigsaw, do mental cue, do cue lament, oh calmed tune, oh calm detune. A few more, Tom can elude, can he? You held at once, which is just a letter U, little bit impure there, I think.
No.
Meant Cluedo. And her particular favourite of her anagrams, menaced lout.
And she finishes with a prayer, doesn't she? But she calls it a prayer.
She does. And it's come, lead, nut. I'm not sure whether that's insulting church leaders or God
or us or
us.
Whoever,
yeah.
Really.
Anyway, thank you for that. You really worked hard on that.
I think the thing about anagrams, and perhaps those don't prove the point, is that they do take a long time to sift through to actually come to one that makes sense. And I know when you were doing anagrams all the time, it did take a lot of false starts to finally come up with ones that seem to really relate to what you wanted to say.
But when they do happen, it's wonderful. Years and years ago, when I wrote a little piece which is almost all anagrams, one of them was Ronald Reagan, which I thought was never going to make anything, and that was An Oral Danger, which I thought was kind of fitting at the time. What else was there?
There was Armageddon.
Armageddon was an anagram of an armed god. And Elvis Presley, rather beautifully, was an anagram of silvery sleep. So every now and then something goes right, and it's very satisfying.
The other thing that we were talking about was fear, and it was about the fears that we tend to see as being silly, and we've had one or two quite interesting, because I discovered that although when I first looked at them I thought, well, that's pretty odd, that actually they have a proper phobia name. So somebody has written to us to say her husband has a fear of toffee, quite a sense of claustrophobia, because the fear it might glue his teeth together and he might not be able to escape.
Wow.
And that actually has a name, caramellophobia.
Oh, caramel. Oh, yeah, I get it, yeah.
But another one, somebody talked about her fear of water towers and said that she avoids driving past them, which is a bit of a problem in Suffolk because there are lots there. Well, I have to tell you that you're not alone. There actually is a word called submegalophobia, which is fear of large buildings, but in particular of large buildings containing huge amounts of dark water, and
Wow,
that's
that's
the
amazing.
source of the fear.
Right.
And finally, we had one from somebody in Northern Ireland who has a fear of balloons being let off and flying round the room. Well, that person shares it with Oprah, apparently. It's globophobia, and it's apparently quite common. So when we do laugh at these, what we see as pretty daft fears, maybe we do have to remember that for other people that they can be huge. But at the same time, if you remember, we were talking about not being a slave to fear and trying to put them in their place and not let them overwhelm us.
Bit difficult with the water towers, isn't it? Because you see loads of them as you drive around.
And they are huge.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking about one of the phobias I mentioned, which was dietnophobia, which is fear of dinner parties, and saying that I do worry about them. I'm not afraid of them. I love going out to dinner with people, in case you don't ever want to invite us
again. You used to enjoy
again.
going out to dinner with people.
I do.
Yeah.
But I suppose, Adrian did say he's pretty gabby, and that can be a deep fear in me when we go out. One particular case.
Well, it has sometimes been awkward. It's about flippancy, really. If you are diseased with flippancy, you really have to control yourself if you can. And one night we were going out to have bishop. Sounds very strange. Going out to have dinner with a retired bishop and his wife. And before we went, Bridget said to me, and what did she actually say? She said, Adrian, and the tone was so familiar. And I said, yes. She said, can you not say stupid things tonight? And I said, well, I'll try. She said, no, don't try. Just don't say stupid things. So I said, well, I'll do my best. So we went out to dinner, didn't we? And
we did.
We met the bishop and his wife, who were charming.
They were.
And I was really trying to just have a nice, ordinary evening. And eventually the bishop said, yes, my wife and I have really enjoyed this period of retirement. I said, oh, that's good, I'm glad. He said, yes, it has been good. He said, my wife and I have been doing some things recently that we haven't done for a very long time. I looked at Bridget.
And I looked at you.
You looked at me, and I said, well, that's good. No, that's very good. That's so good. He said, yes, it is good. He said, for instance, we've taken up the study of art. So I said, oh, that's good, because I'm really boring when I'm not being stupid, I have to tell you. And he said, yes, it is good. He said, for instance, this week we've been looking at hue, tone, and what was the third one?
Intensity.
Intensity, yes. And I really tried. I absolutely battled.
You did not.
I did for almost a second. And then I said, oh, I know them. I went down the pub with them last week. Hue and Tone, and that nice girl called Intensity. A little bit sort of tight, but
stressy.
very bit stressy, but very nice. And his lordship was a little taken aback. But as soon as he realised that it was a case of Christians having fun, apparently it was fine. But yeah, it's just that moment when you have to make the choice. So I'm not always very good at that.
I've been searching in myself a bit as well, and I think probably at the very top of my list is a fear of being told off, is a fear of getting something so wrong. And I think possibly...
You shouldn't be fearing that.
I think especially in the area of God, I think I grew up kind of feeling that I had to be a bit more than I was, and probably spent far too many years saying to God, do you mind not looking while I go into a corner and try and pummel myself into a reasonable shape, and once I've sorted myself out, I can come and do a job for you. I know the roots of that, but it has been a drag. It really has been a nuisance, especially when people point out to me that the things that God says right the way through the Old Testament, when he says, bring me your sins, I can make them white as snow. Come and talk to me, I can take it and throw it like a stone into a deep pond. And I know those things, but it isn't always easy.
It's a supreme irony, really, isn't it, that you and many other people, and one or two people who've written recently, go through those feelings an awful lot. And for me, I think confession that we do in the Anglican Church fairly formally, and when we do it, we tend to busk it according to the people who we've got with us. But I think it's God's favourite part of the service, and it gets so sombre.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing funny about confessing horrible stuff you've done, but it is the time when it all goes right. Yeah. And it's always so solemn and dark sometimes. It really, really, I find it very, very difficult. And I think if you look at the bit where it says about our great high priest, and he's been tempted just as we are, and there's just that feeling that you can go and talk it through. It's not the end of the world. And one of my favourite moments in the Bible is the one where Peter is in the boat, and Jesus has been crucified and has been seen again, and they're in the boat, and John suddenly points to the shore and says, "Look, it's the Lord, it's the Master." And Peter flings something on, flies over the side of the boat, and just splashes his way through to the beach. And the fascinating thing about that, I think, is that it isn't because he wanted to have a prayer time or go through his 3 confessions or any of those things. And nothing was sorted by then. He just wanted to see him. Why? Why did he want to see him?
Yeah, I think maybe there's a clue in something that happened with our dog. It was when she was a puppy. She was called Lucy. She was a collie, incredibly bright, but that meant it took a bit of training. And we were going for a walk with her in one of our favourite places in Sussex, the Exeat. It was a glorious day, and it was the first time she'd been let off the lead, and we were trying to train her to be good. Well, there's water at the Exeat, and she was fascinated by it. And she kept kind of shifting nearer and nearer to it, and we kept calling her back, and again she would come, and then she started not coming and going closer and closer, and she disappeared behind some bushes, and suddenly we heard an incredible splash. There was a pause, and then out of the bushes came a bedraggled, small, miserable puppy. She knew she'd done wrong, but what did she do? She came to us. Miserable, in the wrong, but she came back to us because there was nowhere else to go, because she knew that we were her people and that we did love her, and even if we told her off, she was safe back with us.
I think that is precisely why Peter went flying through the water, because he saw the shape of Jesus, who was someone he loved. And I don't suppose he even thought about what would happen on the beach until he got there. And that suggests something very important, doesn't it? That in the end, it is that relationship, the sense of love, that a lot of people have not got, I would say, who have never done the things Peter did, you know, the betrayal and all those things, but would love to have that. So it's something to really think about.
And I think Jesus understood this so much, how hard it was for his disciples to understand that it was all right to just go however you were and talk to God. So just that preamble bit to where he gives them actual words to say. He says, when you pray, go into your room and close the door and pray to your Father. And your Father, using those words Father, which we must never forget was a very unusual thing to be saying anyway, your Father who knows what is done in secret will reward you. He'll listen to you. He knows you. He knows what you've done. You don't need to pretend. You just need, however messed up you feel, to come back to the person who loves you, just as Peter did to Jesus.
Some people have had really poor teaching over this and have ended up frightened and guilty and wondering if actually they can ever go back to God and whether he's listening to them anyway. And I would just like to say to you, if that applies to you as we speak today, that's not right. It's not right. You are always welcome. You are always welcome in the embrace of God, always. And you take the unedited version of yourself, and he will be more than pleased to see you and listen to you. It's not easy. I'm not pretending it is. Some of us have been living in the dark in that way for so long. But all I'm saying is it is possible to discover that. It really is. And as Peter himself said, when all the other followers had gone and just the disciples were left, and Jesus said, "Are you going as well?" And Peter said, "Who are we going to go to? You've got the words of eternal life. You're the one I want to be with." That's the important thing. You're the one I want to be with.
So at a time when we have got ourselves in our own rooms, we can't be with everybody in church, we can't join in communal prayer in the same way. Maybe that's what we need to do, Adrian. Just go into our rooms, as we're in already, close the door, and speak to our Father who knows us and loves us.
Have a go. Some people will find it difficult. I know that. I really know that. But it's worth trying. Anyway, hope it goes well. God bless.
Bye-bye. God bless.